Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Breezy Point Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. I will call the meeting to order and ask for approval of the June 11th, 2019 minutes.
So moved.
We have a motion, we have a second. Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Two minor typos. On page 2 in D, the word or should be of, and at the end of that line, there's no punctuation.
Thank you, Larry.
And then just a comment, not a correction or anything, because it's correct here, is that apparently that two-story building became one. That burned down?
The one, there's
Is that a different one?
a different one.
There were two buildings on that, that had fire damage. The one was a two-story and the other one was a single.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay, so just the one that is built now and the other one is
Is in process.
Okay, I just read by, I saw a one-story building, I drew a conclusion. Okay.
Any other discussion? If not, all in favor of that motion? Opposed, the same? Motion passed. Council liaison report. Councilman Maroney.
Good evening. Yes, City Council met at its regular scheduled meeting on Monday, July 1st. Briefly recap, our Night to Unite will be August 6th. That is going to be held at City Hall. We do have our butterfly release coming up July 10th. 20th. Yep, sorry. 10th will be tomorrow, that's not 20th. We did accept our bids and awarded the lower bidder for the White Birch Development Project for paving and sewer. It was a new firm, but our engineer did some background checking, and while the firm is new, the gentlemen that are running the company are not new to the game, so they just went on their own. Let's see, we did get a study results back for the PLCC for sewer. We did direct staff and the mayor to work with the PLCC on that, on the findings for that. Some other policy stuff, sexual harassment policy, investigation policy for the police department. We adopted that per state's recommendations. We also officially accepted Officer Dwyer's resignation from the force and also approved the hiring of a new officer, Dan Sathry, who was a previous officer with the city of Breezy Point, I believe 10 years or so ago. And he also has paramedic training as well. And so after being recertified in the next 6 months, we'll have another officer paramedic here in Breezy Point. So great to hear on that one. And we also accepted the new 2020 to 2022 police union contract. Any questions for me?
Thank you.
Thank you.
And welcome to the mayor and his wife tonight. We will then move to the next item on the agenda, which is open forum number 1. Would anyone like to speak during open forum number 1? If not, we'll close open forum number 1 and move to the next agenda item, which is a public hearing on an interim use permit application I-19001. Miranda Mosier and Joe Gazanka. Did I pronounce that correctly? Gonska.
Yep.
30273 North Spruce Drive. Requests for home occupation, recreation equipment rental, R3 zone. I will open the public hearing and ask the applicant if you'd like to make a presentation.
Don't really, not at this time, I guess.
We had just called to find out about being able to do a rental.
Joe, you want to have him come up to the mic, because it's
Oh,
being
I'm
recorded?
sorry, yes.
Sure.
Sure.
I work for Breezy Point in the maintenance.
Okay.
I've noticed that there is a fairly large demand for rentals of bicycles. I've been asked that quite often, where we can rent bicycles. I've had to tell them Cross Lake or Nisswa, because nobody around here is renting bicycles. Just thought it would be nice to have it in our community. We live right here in the resort and could offer that. So,
Yeah, and I just called the city hall and they said that this was their first step, so we came to ask permission to be able to do that out of our garage.
our shop, yeah.
Yeah.
We have 2 lots there. We have an off-premise building, shop. That's where we would run it out of that building.
And we do have your application in our packet. Does anyone have any questions at this point?
Not at this point.
Tracy?
My question would be, what do you include in recreational equipment? I mean,
I'm
is it gonna be
thinking
ATVs?
No,
No.
no.
No motorized.
No motorized.
Yeah,
That'd be a condition too.
yeah, I'm thinking, some beanbag board sets, long games, that kind of stuff.
Because we have a lot of families that are coming up to the area for the weekend and they don't want to travel with all of that extra
Or they forgot it
baggage.
and they get here and go, well, you know, it'd be nice, and I've seen that, and like I said, working in the resort, I kind of see the need for the bicycle thing. Is probably one of our biggest keys right
And
now.
we're just this is a complete just starting out. You know, we've just been kind of dreaming about everything, working on some insurance quotes and things like that. But I thought it would be really cool in the wintertime too to offer like snowshoe rentals, maybe
Or cross-country skis,
cross-country
something like
ski
that.
rentals, something like that. So,
Do you feel you have enough space inside the building to store everything that you would be renting out?
Definitely.
Okay.
It's 24 by 40, and it has been my race shop for the last few years. All of that equipment is being liquidated and out, and now I'm gonna turn it into that.
I saw the one.
Yeah, the race car, yeah. It is going to Nebraska on Friday, so should not be there any longer, and that's what I'm gonna turn that building into.
that's why we thought it was like the perfect scenario, really, since we have that extra garage and area to store everything in, and actually a separate driveway for people to pull in and out of, that's not in the way, and
The other thing I would be looking at possibly in this winter is maybe some fish house rental stuff. I worked with Matt a little bit last year in the extreme snow conditions that we had. He was having a very tough time getting to his houses, and a lot of the people on the lakes were, so I ended up with I have a fixed high-wing V-plow, so I kept the roads open and helped people get off the lake last winter. As a matter of fact, yes, that is the shop that we would be running.
But you wouldn't be renting fish houses out of there, would you?
No, not at the, no, absolutely not at this point in time. So I would look at doing something maybe down the road, renting a fish house or 2 possibly, but as of now, no.
If you did get into the fish house rental business, those fish houses would have to stay inside your garage when you're not on the lake.
we would park them at his mom's house. She lives in Merrifield, and they would be parked in our yard. We
We
would
don't
not
have room
store
for
them.
them, especially when you get the snow. I mean, you just don't have room for all the fish houses. And I'm not planning on growing into a big rental facility. I don't want that much overhead in there, so.
Peggy? Jerry, would you want to just go through your staff review?
Sure. The application is for a home occupation. The definition of a home occupation is the use of a commercial nature conducted by an occupant of a dwelling entirely within the dwelling or accessory buildings, which use is clearly incidental and secondary to the use of the dwelling for residential purposes. I think that probably addresses some of your issues, that it has to be entirely within the building. It's not something that's happening on the street or on the sidewalk or that type of thing. Home occupations are an interim use permit, which is basically the same as a conditional use. Same criteria, same application form, same conditions as stipulated by the approval, if there is an approval. And it is a conditional use in the R3 zone. This house is, where the applicant is located is at the corner of Spruce and Breezy Point Drive. The lot contains a home with an attached garage and a detached garage, and I believe the applicant has stated that the detached garage would be the facility that would be used for this application. There's seeking to start a recreational equipment business rental, and I believe it would be considered a conditional use permit if it's so granted. There are sign requirements in our sign ordinance. They would have to stand by, and I listed those as part of the report. Again, it meets the definition of a conditional use, and it meets the definition of a interim use. The interim use, for everybody's information, is basically the same as a conditional use, but it usually has a time period set on it. Typically, those time periods are 3 to 5 years for the initial phase. And if the terms are not, if it is approved, it would have to be reviewed after that time limit again. So if it were 3 years, it would be reviewable after 3 years, or if there was a violation of the terms of the approval. Suggested terms of approval: no outside storage, no signage, or if there is signage, sign not to exceed 6 square feet. Maximum number of employees 2. All activities within the dwelling and/or the detached accessory structure. No accumulation of garbage. Interim use limited to recreational equipment rentals only. Interim use to expire on 12/31/2022. No retail sales. And if hours of operation 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Staff would recommend approval with those conditions.
Questions of Jerry?
I have one. On the signage, the 6 square feet can be divided into 2 signs, but the total is 6 square feet, or is it just one sign?
Basically, it says 6 square feet maximum.
Total?
Yes.
Not per sign, but
Right.
in other words, if they want to put a bigger sign, 4 square feet on one spot, and they could put a smaller one over in front of the garage or something.
That's not going to work, because I think you're only allowed one.
Okay, and then the entirely within the structure, that doesn't mean that Saturday morning, there's 6 bikes parked outside the garage, is that correct?
I would suspect that would be advertising, and that would not fulfill the intent.
If there's 6 bikes parked out front to be picked up, like people are coming.
In a
to
bike
pick up
rack?
a bike.
Then we're going to get
That's
to, we're going
definitely
to,
something that's gonna happen along with like other things. It's not gonna be a mess or an issue, or, I mean,
Right.
garbage or anything like that, but if we have a bike rack outside, or if somebody returns them after 6 o'clock, you know, they'll return them to that bike rack.
Will there be somebody on the job at all times when bikes or lawn darts or whatever it is would be picked up or dropped off?
I would like to say yes for the majority of the time, but there's gonna be times too where we're not there. And if somebody needs to drop them off, and just for the record, we do own a Ice Castle Fish House that is parked in our yard, and that is our personal fish house. So if anybody drives by there and thinks we're doing fish house rentals, we're not. That is our personal fish house at our house. But yeah, I mean, definitely, I think that that could be something to be discussed. If you look at our property, we have a tree line right next to the garage. That would be the perfect area. It's not an inconvenience, an eyesore, or anything like that for a small bike rack for people to drop off bikes. And I'm not talking about getting carried out of hand and having kayak racks and this and that outside. I'm just saying that there's going to be a rare occasion where we're not there, or our kids aren't there, that somebody will have to leave a bicycle outside.
Because obviously we're gonna have the building locked up, because that's where most of the stuff is going to stay
I
inside.
just feel uncomfortable if, you know, they're signing that whatever it is to rent your kayak or your bike or whatever it is just then dropping it off and leaving it.
Gonna have all their information, gonna have a damage deposit,
Okay.
so if it doesn't get returned, I mean, we
If
got.
it gets returned and stolen, I mean, that's his issue.
Right.
Do you see a situation where somebody's gonna drive over and wanna park their car there for the day while they ride a bicycle around for a day?
I would hope not, and very limited, and I would have my second driveway, and I can tell you that it's probably not gonna be an option anyway, because where we live, we can't park our cars half the time,
Okay.
because there is cars.
With all the
there is
condos around
congestion.
us, there's.
All of the condos on the golf course, they park in our yard. So then they walk
along
across
the
the road.
side
So
of the
there's
yard.
not gonna be an option for a lot of parking there anyway. As I was trying to mow the grass the other day, 4th of July weekend, you see, I mean, if anybody's drove that way, you see the congestion there already. So it's not gonna be an option to park much for vehicles there anyway. So-
Peggy, you have,
I have a couple of questions. First of all, are your neighbors all apprised of the fact you're doing this? Have they offered an opinion?
No, they have not that I'm aware of.
You sent letters to everyone, right?
We did send a notice to everyone within 350 feet.
I don't see anyone like Sally and Kenneth, they're completely happy with everything. Norm's never there. They're the two that are directly across from us, and then nobody lives in the ones behind us, so there really is no other.
Would within 300 feet be the resort also? Is the resort aware of this?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Aside from that, is there some way that we could maybe stipulate, it says hours of operation 7 to 7, and if we're concerned about things being left outside, is there some way we could include any returned items must be undercover by, I don't know, what, 10 o'clock at night, and not out again until 6 in the morning, or some such thing as that? Is
That would be
I have no
perfect.
problem with that too.
That would be completely fair. Because I work late sometimes too, and if I'm not home and somebody drops something off and I get home at 8, I don't want to get in trouble because I didn't, you know,
It's a bike in the rack.
yeah.
So,
And just not to have any question about the signage, should we either have 2 or 6 or combine the 2? I mean, no signage is not the same as sign 2.
I believe the ordinance limits it to 1 sign per property.
Okay, but I mean, then we shouldn't say no signage, we should just say that 1 is.
Well, I gave you the option for one or the other in that recommendation.
any other questions?
Mr. Joe,
Yes, sir.
I guess I'd still like clarification on the no outside storage. At one point, no outside storage was identified, and yet the applicants are saying, yes, there's going to be outside storage. So I'd like to avoid any conflict and enforcement coming 2 months from now.
Peggy, are you interested in having that be a condition when we get to that point?
I think there should be some way of stipulating that, I mean, it's reasonable if somebody might return a bike when they're not home, they run to the grocery store. I think that's reasonable, but it's not reasonable that it's still there at 2 a.m.
Right.
Absolutely.
I agree with you, Phil.
Now, I'm saying, but for your point, we just make that a condition that all rented equipment is back inside storage overnight
Yeah.
by 2 a.m. or whatever the number might be.
Yeah, 10 PM to 6 AM, like you said, that's very reasonable and.
And Patrick will make sure we get clarification on that when a motion is made. Okay.
The term storage sometimes can be misleading. I think we've all that. I wasn't storing it there, I just parked it there. It happens.
Yep.
So we, like I say, I think we do have to clarify what it means. Zero tolerance for less stuff being left outside.
I agree with you 100%. I don't want the
In other words,
clutter.
and that's what your neighbors would object to if they were going to object, is
The clutter.
Absolutely.
Is there some way, this maybe isn't even reasonable, that, let's say you had 8 people who came to rent a bike, and so there's 8 cars that are gonna be left because they're taking the bike over to Paul Bunyan or whatever. Could they ever be on the backside of the parking lot here?
Oh, this is public, if you're asking is public parking here, that's fine. We've got, actually, we have the parking for trailers behind the ball fields also.
That's a good point.
Oh, that's a great point. I mean, to give somebody an option, we're really, like I said in the beginning stages of all this, we really want to avoid anybody parking at our house. When we're looking into insurance, we're looking into insurance for him to be able to take the bicycle from the garage, deliver it to where they're at.
Yeah, if
And,
there
or,
are 8 people that want to rent bikes and take off on the Paul Bunyan Trail, I'll deliver it to them.
or say we do a kayak and they want to take a kayak, then he would deliver it to the landing for them so that we don't have
We don't have
the
to.
people at our house all the time either. We'd much rather deliver it, you know.
You might want to rent bike racks as well.
Right, possibly.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, if you want a bike and
Yeah,
want
they
to
wanna go
go on the
somewhere.
trail,
Yep.
they rent
Yeah.
a rack as well, and then they drive their car up that way.
Can I ask a question real quick about all this? So with this saying of no retail, out of the garage, is there a reason why there's no retail? Like, for instance, if I order all of these snowshoes and people really like them and they want to purchase a pair when they leave, I'd like to have that option if possible.
It might be another business.
The application was for recreational rental, and that's where the stipulation came from. The other thing is, if it's going to be retail business, the application should have been for a retail business.
Sure.
That's why I'm asking.
Yeah.
That's, yep, the whole purpose of my question.
Well, and that's
Oh,
the other thing,
sure.
I guess I don't know if.
Do you want to store there?
Go by and we have turnover and want to update our
It's not, sir, it's not
equipment.
gonna be a retail store.
We want to update our equipment, can we sell our used equipment? Or would that be retail?
I think it's a very logical, question. Is there a way to amend it so that we can add that in there? And we're not talking about a huge retail store, by all means. I'm talking about if somebody comes and they rent a lily pad, for instance, which is something you float on, and we have other ones there and they want to purchase one. Being able to purchase it while it's there. It's inside the garage, it's not bugging anybody or being left outside or.
Patrick?
Joe, the other part of it is it was pointed out earlier, this interim use does expire. And so this commission, it doesn't, let's say they are, we hope they are successful. And they might not go to their own facility, but they operate out of their property for long term. This commission, after 3 years, has the right to review that and limit what might be going on at that place, right, Jerry? Mm-hmm. So
By
that's.
the same token, if we agree that maybe that's not unreasonable, that down the road they might want to sell, maybe we should shorten the interim period so they could redo that option.
And we could revisit it at a shorter.
I promise you, if this thing takes off like crazy, we're gonna buy a place up the road, in town, a retail place and have a commercial business. But we're talking really small, mom and pop. I work full-time, he works full-time. We work separate shifts, so I'll be home during most of the night, he'll be home during the day, and we can do this ourselves. This is what we're talking about doing. It's a
And we
great,
have 2 teenage kids that can help us out.
and we're not gonna have any employees.
You do say in here, maximum employees 2. Well, now you got 2 kids, and that could be construed as 4 employees.
An owner isn't an employee.
Okay, well, I don't know.
I wouldn't think.
Yeah, we're owner and operators, so we wouldn't be considered employees
Correct.
under the
Y'all
law.
accept that?
I was impressed with the fact they had teenagers that will help.
Yeah,
I didn't hear the.
We're not saying.
I think the intent was hired employees, it was not necessarily the owner occupant of the building.
We don't want to hire any employees.
Mr. Chair, Jerry, interim use permit also allows if conditions are placed on the interim use permit and conditions are not being met, it can be reviewed at any point.
Exactly, yes.
If retail sales was not part of the approval for tonight, can the applicant bring it up again before the interim use expires as well?
They can amend it at any time, or petition to amend it.
Just asking the clarifying facts for everybody, so thank you.
You know, for competitors not to be upset, could you say that the equipment can be upgraded, but you can't sell new equipment? In other words, somebody wants a suit that you've rented them, they can buy one that you rented them, but they can't buy a new off the rack. Would that be a way to cover that? Now they're buying a used, like snowsuit or whatever would be, depending on the season of the year.
I don't see that the retail sales as a big
Okay.
deal breaker, quite frankly. I think that there will be occasional sales. It'd be no different than a garage sale at their residence. I think the intent is so that there isn't a sign out there that says for sale this, for sale that,
Yeah.
let's not sell this. But it'd be no different than you selling something
At a garage sale.
at a garage sale, out of your garage or whatever.
Stuff to sell it, you gotta do that. I should have brought pictures.
And that's something down the road, and we want to suffice everybody. We don't want there to be any issues at all or anybody upset with us. We
Like,
want to do
yeah.
everything right from the beginning, you know?
A lot of the yard games, the beanbag boards and stuff like that, I've made many sets of them and I've sold them to friends and whatnot. And I can see where if I rent them a set and they go, oh, I really like these bags and boards, will you sell them? Sure. Yeah. And a little bit other set for it. So, and that's kind of, or like I said, bicycles. I want to try and flip them every couple of years so we keep current stuff. So, but as far as making it into a gigantic retail business, that's not due to one of our intentions.
Thank you. Next step is public input. Would anyone like to come up to the microphone and provide input to this application? Then I will close the public hearing and move to our next agenda item, which is taking action on this application. We have a recommendation from the city planner. I would entertain action on that recommendation.
I don't know if it's now or later, but I would like to add when we talked about it, but it's not a written condition in here, and that would be no motorized equipment.
Can we hold off and you add that to a motion, Larry?
I made a motion
Pardon?
there. No, well,
If Mr. Neer was going to make the motion, he would make that
Motion.
motion
As a part of
with.
and if somebody else made the motion, then I would want to ask to amend that motion.
Are you making a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve with the additional condition of no motorized recreational equipment of any kind. And I've got another question on, maybe drop Jerry's number 2, because it says no signage there, and then it says signage not to exceed 6 square feet. They kind of conflict with one another.
I was giving you an option.
Is that?
Yes, remove,
Okay.
remove number 2.
Okay.
I would
Larry,
second that motion, if Patrick would read back some of the other things that we talked about, like the hours or things like that. In other words, what other things that we had to put?
Can I try?
Yeah,
Returned items must be placed within the accessory structure by 10 PM each evening.
You said items what? Did you say items returned?
Returned items must be placed within the accessory structure by 10 PM.
I think he's saying all items.
I think it ought to be all items.
Okay.
In case something wasn't
Yeah.
returned, that was out there.
And that plays well, you know, if the applicant has a bike out there that says rent me today, we're asking, it's not a return item, but it's,
So Larry, your motion includes all of the conditions listed by Jerry with the exception of no signage?
Correct.
Plus-
Plus
no
the
motorized.
Plus,
yeah, plus the motorized vehicle one. And now they're adding in another one, or clarifying, I
I
guess.
see. Do we have a second to that motion?
I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second discussion.
I guess my only concern is, you have the expiration date, plus you have the fact that if they violate the other conditions, we could review it at any time. My concern is we may be opening a can of worms, but with those restrictions, I guess I'm willing to accept the can of worms.
Just a small can?
Any other discussion?
if I may, I'll have some comments.
Sure.
Just to make sure everybody, you know, throughout the conversations, we've also talked about the potential of the sales. Number 9 is a condition of no retail sales. So that is a condition that you were about to approve, limiting that, just clarifying that's still on your docket that you want to approve. I think discussion was well regarding parking. The other thing that stood out for me at least was the sign. Must be 10 feet from the property line, but the height requirement is
10 feet.
so it can be a potential of 10 feet high as part of a introduce permit or part of that district.
That's what the ordinance requires. Now, if you think that's too high or it's too big, you can modify that as part of your motion.
So
Or as part of the approval
could be a
process.
Potential issue. Also, that's a very well-trafficked road. While a sign would be great on there for advertising, I'm also just concerned about sight lines. I don't think it would be an issue, but just wanted to mention that to you all. But those were some of my comments that I just wanted to make sure that, but otherwise, thank you.
I agree, but because with a corner lot, there could be sightline issues.
Except it's the second part, it's over the corner.
Well, I assume they could put it on their house lot.
Yes. The lots are conjoined, is
The
it
whole thing
correct?
is their house lot.
One lot.
It's one lot.
Yeah, so it could be down there at the corner. What's the name? Breezy Point Drive and.
This area?
Yeah.
Have you given thought to where?
Absolutely, can we explain kind of what we have in mind?
Well, okay, but here's the thing, we just found out that you can only have one sign, but like a 6-foot sign. I think that's too big, for one thing.
Now, it's 6 square feet, that is.
Right, and we don't want one.
It's 2 by 3.
Okay, 6 square feet, okay, so that's not that big.
I would like to, what we've talked about is putting a sign basically the size and like elect your
A
mayor
political sign.
political sign
Oh,
on the corner by the stop sign, and then one right by the driveway with arrow and rental here.
I mean, I know it's been that you can have one, we just found that out, but this is what we had been discussing, is some smaller, just metal that need to stick in the ground, signs that are easy movable for mowing the lawn.
Nothing big, nothing lit up, nothing 10
We
feet
have
up there.
bushes, that line the sidewalk there, and then there's the sidewalk, and then there's the trees that Breezy has planted. So it would be in our yard, up at that corner, just,
Do we need to put something in there that it would not obstruct the view lines from both roads, particularly the road at the stop sign?
Yeah, I think that'd be good, yeah.
I think with the applicant then saying, you know, describing what the size is, I think you could easily say not to exceed 4 feet in height. And I think that's gonna achieve that and still keep those sight lines available.
For sure, absolutely.
Proper. 4 feet for the proper.
Actually,
3.5.
view yourself seeing out the car window, and you don't want that above your car window.
Right.
If you were on the street,
So maybe 3 feet.
3 feet is probably maximum height.
So we need to amend our motion with 2 additions, no retail sales at this point, is that correct? And adding the size and height limitation of the sign.
The retail sales issue has to be clarified.
Because if they're gonna have retail sales, they're gonna have to come back and
That's correct.
Yeah, we're not really looking
we're not ready to do that.
for retail sales. Like I said, what we're looking at is selling, instead of beanbag boards that somebody could use and say, hey, I want that. Well then, like you said, it's no different than really selling it off your garage.
That almost becomes an unreturned item.
is that okay to do though? I mean,
I was just gonna ask that question, is that,
because let's put that in the notes, because if he does sell a beanbag board and it comes back that we have retail, I don't
Yeah.
want to get in trouble either.
Right.
Or a bicycle that could be.
So we either take the retail out or clarify it?
it would seem to me that would help.
I would say, you say no retail sales, let it go with that. And then if in the next 3 years it seems to be becoming an issue, then we could bring it back up. Like I say, I expect that they're trying to do a good job for themselves and the community. And assuming that's true, fine. If it's not, then bring the axe down.
Yeah, if you use it, the business is really going well, you say, well, it was a 3-year business. It's a risk you'd have to take,
Or you would like to amend the
Yeah.
application.
Sure.
but no guarantees it's approved. Any other issues with illumination of the sign?
It doesn't, the ordinance doesn't allow illuminated signs in residential districts.
Thanks, that helps it out.
So to clarify too, Jerry, they would have to actually apply for a sign permit?
They would need a sign permit if it's going to be a permanent sign.
Should James had a spotlight on it? Or you can.
We wouldn't want to anyway, or
It's a daytime business.
daytime business, correct?
But snowshoes, well, it's true, you're not gonna do snowshoe in the dark either, but it gets dark at 4 o'clock up here.
Do you need a sign permit with the metal signs that are
Yes.
removable? You do? But they're not permanent.
Yeah, I was gonna ask.
They're
If you're
just,
gonna put it in each and every day when it's open, that's permanent, yeah.
Think you're okay with?
That way they're covered. That way they're legitimate. They don't have to worry about the neighbors complaining about their sign, and it's been approved by the city.
Sure.
Should probably say then sign not to exceed 6 square feet, must be 10 feet from property line, and may not be higher than 3 feet. Make sense?
And that be a condition? Larry, are you
Yes.
okay with that?
Yep.
Okay. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same? Motion passed.
Good luck.
thank you.
Open works.
Thank you.
I want to rent the snow.
I'm gonna go shopping now.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
You're
Thank you
welcome.
for coming in with it too.
Will we get a copy of all the conditions in writing for, okay, thank you very much, Jerry. Thank you.
See you guys. See you.
The next item on our agenda is a public hearing for an ordinance amendment, rental units, apartments, conditional use in commercial C zone. I will open the public hearing and ask Yuri for his statement.
The recent comprehensive plan discussions have identified a need within the community for apartments and rental type housing. Basically, we really have none. And when we started looking at where something like that could go, we found that the only place that was really allowed were in the R4 district and the resort commercial areas. The resort commercial area and the R4 area are basically already developed. And any development of the apartment type would have to happen as a redevelopment rather than a brand new development. The other thing we looked at is where sewer was available. And when you looked at where sewer was available and not as many conflicting uses and where there was some land available, it just kind of made sense that the commercial area be something that should be considered for multiple family housing. This proposal in front of you this evening is to look at the potential for amending our ordinance, specifically the commercial portion of the zoning ordinance, that would allow multiple family housing as a conditional use in the commercial districts. That would require an amendment to the commercial section of the zoning ordinance, and I think we've included in your packet a proposal that number 28 be added as a conditional use, and it would also require that the land use chart be amended to allow rentals, apartments as a conditional use in the commercial district. That's kind of the gist of the proposal in front of you this evening. I know that there have been many discussions within that comp plan group about providing all types of housing within the community, and this seems to be one type of housing that is not really available or readily available because there really isn't any place that it's allowed.
Questions of Jerry? Peggy? Okay, Larry? Casey? Paul? Mike? Okay. I will ask for public input. Would anyone like to speak? You know the drill, David.
Yeah, David Landecker, representing White Birch, Inc. and Breezy Point Resort. And just would like to say that we're in favor of the request here today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Neil?
Neil Nervison, Iverson Management, Commander Restaurant Bar, a few other things. Also generally in favor of it. We talked about this during some of the comp planning, the need for more housing. The only thing I would say though is that any of this residential stuff, even some of the uses that are available in the commercial zone right now, it doesn't all fit with every commercial parcel that's already in existence in the community. And so I don't know how we handle that. It's probably just as complicated as having a return bike rack. As conditions go, but I mean, obviously, owning a business like the Commander, with a big sign out front, traffic coming and going until 2 o'clock in the morning. Somebody builds a residential apartment next door and starts complaining about that after we've been there for 40 years, that's problematic. And obviously, some of the stuff we're looking at that's available for that type of zoning is in those areas. There's other areas in the commercial zone that easily can have an apartment building in would not be a problem. And so the only thing I wanted to say about it tonight is, yeah, we're definitely in favor of it. I mean, we need to find a way to get employees in here and house them and have people come to town where it's not quite as expensive to live as it is right now by buying a house or whatever it takes to come up with a summertime rental or whatever it might be. But I just also wanted to point out the fact to the planning commission that once you open up a residential purpose, a place where people are going to be living, to a commercial zone, maybe not everything we have will be conducive to that. So that was my only other comment, but generally I'm definitely in favor.
Thank you.
I'd just like to, I'm Tom O'Hine, Mayor, and I'd just like to reiterate what Neil has said as far as we do need this in this area. It was basically brought up as a result of the meetings that we had with the business community. It's one of their #1 concerns, they don't have housing. And in just looking at it and looking at the commercial areas, it seems like it's a good idea. There's not that many commercial areas that are served by sewer that would actually accommodate rental housing for families. I think this is a big step forward because the intent here is to encourage our business community and to grow the city a little bit every year. So I am, as the mayor, very much in favor of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Bob Erickson with Breezy Properties. We own 258 rental units in Pequot Lake. Very successful. And we are currently living here in Breezy Point. And so I was a longtime resident, a 12-year resident of Breezy Point here. Just recently moved out to Jenkins. But we noticed that the dream of a 30-year mortgage isn't necessarily that sought after. Younger generation, more trained business because of the summer.
I got your map up.
And so rentals are much needed in the areas, in the outlying areas, in areas like Breezy Point.
It was up there.
So I also want to say if there are any questions about rental or multifamily housing, workforce housing, Breezy Properties is more than welcome to help out. We are definitely in favor of multifamily housing here in Breezy.
Thank you. It's encouraging. Questions, comments, anyone else?
I have a question. Could you tell us, Jerry, exactly which of those pink sites are already sewered? I'm not sure I know for sure what all is sewered.
I think if you, let me give me a second, the map's acting up today, but. So, I'm going to use that big blue marker again. So if the school is out here, it's going to come along. Forgive me for not knowing exactly where it cuts over, but I'm going to be guessing here. So, and then we come into our treatment facility. But, so commercial is in this area. We have access, sewerage here obviously. The area to the north, this would not. But when we look at all the pink up here, this would be able to be serviced. This would be able to, and I should, we do have the lines coming here, so if you did an injection pump, Prime Time could service that also.
Maybe I can simplify that a little bit. If you look at our zoning ordinance and you look at what our sewer districts are, the main corridor of the sewer system runs around County Road 11 out towards the school. And that kind of coincides with the commercial zone. And that's really how we came up with that recommendation more than anything else.
So in other words, that whole pink area down towards the school, whatever, that could all be serviced by sewer. So then the next question is kind of what Neil mentioned, and I would imagine these things would be addressed in a CUP, but things like density, you know, I suppose everything from heights of buildings, all of those, I see there's some regulations, but the rest of that would be served by a CUP? If something
Totally.
came in.
I will close the public hearing then, unless someone else wants to speak. Thank you, everybody. And move to our next agenda item, which is taking action on a recommendation.
Before you,
Jerry?
in this role, you're a recommending body to the city council, and you would be recommending approval or disapproval for city council action in their near future.
Question of staff real quick. Most of these are in very close proximity to County Road 11. The ones that are not would be to the north of 11, I'm going to reference the resort commercial, Beacon's Lodge essentially, and then the prime time lots. With the roads that are there today, would that handle capacity for apartment complexes there? Are those built up adequately, sized appropriately for the amount of traffic that these could potentially bring?
Well, one of the things that you try to do is to get traffic to a carrier quickly. So the closer you are to County Road 11, which is an arterial or our carrier, that would be the best of both worlds. If you were to put that in the middle of nowhere, out in the middle of a residential district, that really doesn't work because it causes more conflict with the existing neighborhoods.
Okay.
So in essence, right now, our recommendation would basically be to accept the notations that you made here, Jerry. One, number 28, rental units, apartments in commercial district, and the second one, adjusting the land use chart under rental units, apartments, C, commercial. Those are the two things.
Yes.
I so recommend.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Second. Discussion.
This does not include reserve commercial, correct?
Resort commercial.
Resort commercial already it's allowed in resort commercial areas.
Is there any way of minimizing the risk of the government coming in and putting in subsidized housing? Legally?
No.
That would take a developer to make that proposal.
So anybody can pick them.
Do you want to tell us exactly what the guidelines would be in terms of subsidized housing? So should they recommend?
Quite frankly, I think you probably can't you can't distinguish between the two.
Numbers, can you distinguish by numbers, 20%, 5%?
I don't know that you can.
Any further discussion? If not, all in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. We're on our way.
What's it gonna be, Rick?
Well, this is just you're just basically making a change to the zoning ordinance that will come in front of city council next month. And then it's, if we have a developer that wants to build, we have that now available for him to build. That's all as far as it goes.
Open forum number 2. Would anyone like to speak during open forum number 2?
I just want to say
I propose open forum number 2. Under other planning commission tablet tutorial. Uh-oh.
Well, Commissioner Donovan has had a tablet for quite some time. I'm not sure if he's become accustomed to it or not. I can tell you that each of the city council members has one and uses it for city council packets. It's not, they don't get their paper packets, they haven't had them since October of last year. Michael can attest to it, and he'll tell you his own comments, but they're positive. So, in front of you tonight is the tablet. I put one in front of each of you, so if you want to grab that tablet in front of you, open it up. You'll see, first thing you should notice, it's plugged in. And you can tell by the little cord that's attached, and the light on the side is lit up. Can you each see the light on the side of it's lit up?
Yep.
Larry, you there with me? The light on the side is lit up?
No, I just unplugged mine.
See, but it's really easy to plug it back in. That's part of the fun of this. I hear the snickering, Jerry.
Oh, this goes in like this?
And you know it's charging when the light is on. That's like 90% of what you have to know.
needs a brighter light.
I'm just waiting for Larry to get up. He's up to speed. And it usually just comes in and out like that. Inside of the tablet, I shared with you the white sheet of paper. That's your password. So on the very top of your computer, there's 2 buttons. One is for volume, the other one is a smaller button. Press that smaller button now and see if your screen lights up. And then at that point, you want to hit your space bar, and then there should be an opening for telling you to insert your password. And that's why I printed it out for each of you on there, so it tells you what your password is. It'd be preferable if you're not yell it out during a taped YouTube meeting. Nope, you're all to the same password. The council members have their own password because they have access to other things. This laptop you have works off of Wi-Fi. So in City Hall, you are using the free Wi-Fi. At home, if you have Wi-Fi, you're going to want to go to your settings and give it and hook your system up to your system so you can get the free, use your Wi-Fi. But then after that, it operates just like your regular computer at home.
Didn't you get one?
I got one at home.
And from there, it's really more of a, you have to get used to using it and practice with it. And so that's your tutorial for tonight to start. My answer is use it, and then ask me your questions after that. And hopefully Michael's around to answer my questions, because sometimes they're more complicated. But you saw tonight how I was able to use the pen, and you can write on these things. Some of the city council members write their notes right onto the tablet and save it. And so that when they come to the meeting, they open it up, and their notes are right there. And it's just like it's a handwritten document type situation. So, and it has an eraser on the top, just like I was using. We'll walk through that. If you want to come in and give me a call, and we could walk through this with more questions individually, because it's really on an individual basis, your experience level and what you have fun with on this thing. But the idea would be, I would hope that in 3 months you guys would not be using your paper packets any longer. It's convenient for the council members because they don't have to come into City Hall to pick up their packets, and the same could go with you guys. And depending if you're out of town and you're saying, oh, I'm not going to be in town until Monday, a day before the packet, but I want to review the packet ahead of time, you can do that. We ask that you actually do use it for your personal types. Get your emails on here, review it, so you have more practice with the tablet. The more you work with it, the more it'll become second nature. It'll be more useful to you than your cell phone, and definitely more useful than your landline phone that most of us don't have anymore. I'm sorry, Michael, do you guys still sell those? Okay. Okay. Yes?
We do not use a mouse for this, we just use this pad.
You do use just the pad. We can get it set up if you'd like a mouse. We can have one hookup with this, with the USB. The other important thing is I was doing tonight, you can use, it's a touch screen, so you can widen or shorten the screen. Huge improvement. And I was working with a couple of friends who aren't used to touch screens, and they keep touching the screen. It's like, oh, then it changes, and it's just like, you'll find it to be very useful once you have a touch screen type situation. Especially, I'm sorry, as I'm getting older, I still need to enlarge a lot of these things. It just makes it easier, so. Any questions? You do not have to do this. We are asking this. We were able to acquire these through Sourcewell, they get rid of items they're not using any longer. We were able to get these for free. There were no tax dollars involved in this. And so the city councils were the same exact way. So we've been very fortunate. City staff has some of them. If the council doesn't, if you guys choose not to use some of them, I've already got one or two that are being used for other committees too, because we want to get these out there and get everybody online. I want you to. It will save dollars. There's no question about that, because copying costs. And when you get the time to fold one of those color maps, it takes a lot of time, and there's extra processing, and you actually get better quality by able to expand the screen as it is here by using this document. So.
But you can't print from, you can't tie it into your printer.
You should be able to tie it into your printer at home if it's Wi-Fi. You just are not tied into our printer. Like the council members actually would be tied into our printers here because they have access to the secured system. They don't have access to everything, but they have access to certain documents like that. So yes, you would be able to print this at home if you wanted to, but that would defeat kind of the purpose. But I appreciate your trying and willingness to give this a shot.
I'm probably going to want a mouse since I'm going to talk to you.
I'll get one ordered right away.
You don't have to worry, especially if I have one at home, can I just
Oh, sure, yeah, if you have the USB connection and then you just plug it right in. Yes, that's the other thing. If your grandkids want to show you how to use it, they'll be more than happy to. It is. I appreciate your time, and that's all I have with this for tonight. Thank you.
No.
Any other items that we need to discuss? Any other? If not, meeting's adjourned.